autism spectrum disorder for my final presentation. Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disability that has just now recently, in the last 150 years, come into light for research and focus. People that have been diagnosed with autism are among those in the population, as based on the criteria of licensed professionals and the DSM-5 manual by the American Psychiatric Association. DSM-5 is the diagnostic manual for different medical and psychiatric disorders. There are a huge, wide spectrum of different people with various needs, abilities, and personalities. Everyone with autism is different. And all over the world, there are people with autism. There is not a single country that is isolated from autism. There are many people that have it in South Korea, North Korea, different various countries. And in 2018, the prevalence report from the Center for Disease Control and Population said that 1 in every 59 births in the U.S. has been linked with autism. Autism is considered at risk because in human services, there are so many with autism that need the support of a case manager, behavioral therapist, psychiatric care. They need a lot of help sometimes. The support can be in managing their behaviors, psychiatric care and therapy, special education courses, speech language help. The lack of proficiency with their socialization and the cues in their language can create barriers that they need to overcome. Their mental state, their emotional state, their intellectual state. Autism and those on the spectrum are at risk because they need the help of social services. Specific needs in the autism population is that in human services, there are so many that they could really need. They need sensory toys. They need behavior management plans, a behavioral therapist. That's why they have applied behavioral analysis. Sometimes they need psychiatric care and to have a therapist or to be going into a psych ward. Some require case management, caregivers, speech language pathologists to see if they need a way to talk, sign language, or a computer, tutoring, and applied behavioral analysis, caregivers. There are many interventions, support, and treatment that these autistic populations need. They need emotional support, understanding, compassion, ways to help them calm down and make them feel secure. Like Temple Grandin made a squeeze machine in the 70s for that. And I'm ready. There is so much history in autism that we do not know for the populations. There's evidence that has been around for centuries, though, but it was just very recently just referred to as autism. It started out being thought of and described as a way of childhood schizophrenia, with certain traits that can now be attributed to someone with autism having. In 1911, Eugene Bueller first used the term autism. In the 1920s, electroshock therapy was used as treatment. And 1944, Hans Asperger, if you recognize the name, as Asperger's is a type of autism, realized that autism was also a communication disorder. Temple Grandin in the 70s developed a squeeze machine that has a calming effect, and she is also someone that has autism as well. In 1997, children with autism finally got more special education programs tailored to them. 2013, autism spectrum disorders were classified in the Diagnostic Manual of Psychiatric Disorders, DSM-5. There are much more that have happened in the history of autism, but it is mostly in the last 150 years, because there's still so much that we are learning. People with autism, when I think about resiliency, they may not know they have it in some cases, or the way their brains work and function, they may not see it in the way that society sees them due to the different thought process and way their neurons are focusing on. And they may know they have autism and may not be able to voice it. There are so many different things that could be happening. But increasing awareness is also increasing the support and resiliency that these people with autism should have, because they just keep on going. Barriers of autistic people: restrictive and repetitive behaviors. A lot of them need to have routine and do certain behaviors on and on and on, and that is very restrictive. There's lack of educational supports. They may have delays in their schooling and their learning, which leads me to intellectual challenges, and sometimes they may not have the education that tailored to them that they need. There's usually behavioral issues, sometimes that need to be managed with an individual education plan, or vice versa with a therapist or ABA. There's developmental delays, so they're usually behind. There's lack of socialization, social skills, social understandings, which is a barrier for trying to get along with people and be a part of society. And of course, there is always sometimes the lack of communication delays that can happen too. How society views autistic people. There is a very big stigma in society today that is been around and continues to be around. A lot of confusion is up in the air about what causes autism. No one really quite knows, and they have not pinpointed it exactly. There's still so much research, so I feel like that causes society to be divided about how to treat autistic people. There's a lot of neglect, isolation, there's a lot of judgment and misunderstandings, and there's varying opinions. Sometimes they are referred to as retarded, freak, various terms, because not too long ago they were giving them electroshock therapy or locking them up in institutions. So, and we are just now coming into the light of research and figuring out how to help and support the autistic population. Ooh. And autism is a very personal thing for me. I have loved ones that have autism, and I find that they are very resilient, and they have so much that they have to offer. There is a lot of support that can be helped with those with autism. Thank you for listening.